Hi, hi guys, welcome back to term 2 and continuing to work with Game Maker. Now, I think Game Maker is an absolutely brilliant program, and once you start to get into it, I think you'll feel the same. It's a great opportunity to show your creative flair, and let's face it, who's not into games? So being able to create your own games is going to be a great outcome for this course. Now, the first stage of Game Maker is being able to create a game and start creating some resources. So some of the topics we're going to have a look at here are opening up Game Maker again, and it opens up, doesn't matter whether you've got Game Maker 8 or 8.1, it basically opens in the same fashion, but when it does open, I want you to be able to open your working file and know where you've saved that. So that's a bit of file management. So we're going to look at creating a new file and starting to put some sprites within that file. We're going to look at creating sprites and several different ways that we can create sprites. And then we're going to look at saving your game and then re-accessing it and knowing that you haven't lost all your work, because I have had a lot of students in the past, they open up Game Maker and go, it's all gone. So I'll show you a bit about how to know that it isn't all gone and work out where you're up to. So the learning intentions for this lesson are understanding how to create sprites, how to name resources in Game Maker, so it's not just sprites. I'm going to talk about how to name resources using a particular naming convention, and that helps later as you're going to use those resources. Quite often when you're going to use resources, you can't see the image associated with it in the programming side of it, so you need to have the names pretty specific so you know which object you're choosing. We're going to learn some different ways to create resources, so I'll show you several ways using different menu items, maybe duplicating items, and even just how to go back in and edit an item if you've made a little bit of a mistake. So we'll look at those sort of things, and then we're going to have a look at saving your game and then reloading your working file, and so you're confident that you are not losing your work. At the end of this lesson, and once you've worked through the process, a great way to assess yourself is have a look back at the success criteria. So the success criteria for this lesson is the fact that you can create model sprites. And not just create model sprites, but you can use some of the techniques that I talk about in the process and how to create them and go back and change them, access them and make changes to them. The fact that you name your sprites correctly, so using that naming convention, it's one of the things I'll be looking at in your submitted games, is that the naming convention has been used and you're naming the sprites correctly. And believe me, it makes life easier at the end when you start programming those sprites and objects. We're going to look at several different creating sprites using several techniques, and I want you to be able to save your game and reload your game. So if you can do all of these things, you've been successful for this lesson. We're learning a lot in this lesson, but these are the things I want you to focus on: creating sprites, naming sprites, using different techniques to create those sprites, saving your game and reloading your games, closing the Game Maker program down and opening it back up and getting your game back up where you can work on it again. And a part of that is good file management and folder management, having some sort of structure on your computer that you know where you're saving your work. I'm going to start getting into Game Maker now. So I'll start it up as we do. Working on Game Maker 8.1. Comes up with all the standard blurbs. If you just close that down and go File, New, we'll get to our standard platform where we're starting. So at this stage, you can see over here in the left-hand folder structure. We've got the basic folders there, which are set up for you to put things into as you create them, but there's nothing in them. And as we start to put things in them, we'll get little plus signs next to them as an indicator that we've got things in there, and we can open those folders up and close them down. So the thing we're going to make today is some sprites. So the first sprite we're going to create is a chicken sprite. So if we come over to the resources tab, so over here on the resources tab you'll see all of the things that you can create. Now I talked in the last video about advanced mode and simple mode, and I'm in advanced mode at the moment. That's ticked, which means you can see those same resources up here on the menu system. So it doesn't matter how you create the sprite, using this icon here or going into resources, create sprite, and it'll open up a sprite window. Now the biggest thing with creating any objects and sprites and sounds within GameMaker is using the correct naming convention. Now you could leave it as sprite 0, and that's what a lot of people will do, but it doesn't give any description of what it is. And when you have to program things later, you can't work out what they are off these names. So there is a convention that they talk about. There is a PDF document that you can read through that's in Moodle, and it talks about at the start of that document about setting up these naming conventions. Now for a sprite, we'll call it SPR. SPR is for sprite. Put an underscore, and we're going to do the chicken sprite. Okay, so most of the stuff will stay the same here. We've just got to load the sprite. So if we go load sprite, and I'm going to go to where I've saved mine, which is on the desktop. I've got a folder for your class, and hopefully in there will be the chicken sprite. And you notice it drops in over the side here. You can see it there is available now. And if you say OK, and we close this down, you can see now that it's indicating that something is there within that folder. You notice these folders haven't got anything, but this has got a little arrow next to it, and we've got the chicken sitting in there. So we're going to create another sprite. So if we click on this button this time, create sprite, and I'm just going to click on OK. Now you're going to end up with a lot of these types of things throughout your creation of games, where you go to start something and then you close the window down. You're going to end up with extra things sitting in your columns with no images associated with them. And the easiest way, you can go in and edit that. So what's another sprite we've got to create? We've got to do the egg. So we will go back into this sprite, and we'll go load sprite, and we will choose the egg. We'll now name it, and it's SPR underscore egg, and click on OK. And now we've got an object associated with the sprite again. So same process, click on it, SPR underscore, and we've got to do the baby chicken, and click on load sprite, find our baby chicken, and click on OK, and we've got a baby chicken. Now a quick and simple way to do this, as you get a bit smarter, and it's good in some of the future things you've got to create, if you right click on any one of these items, we can go duplicate. Now it's got the chicken in there, it's not named, and another sprite we've got to do is the broken egg sprite. So if we go SPR underscore broken egg, and currently it's got the little chicken in there. If we go load sprite and we look for the broken egg, it'll change that, and click on OK, and we've created another sprite. Now we've created that from duplicating the baby chicken. What's the last sprite we've got to create is the star, so we'll do that again. Right click, duplicate, load sprite, and we'll go star, and again we go SPR underscore star, and click on OK. Got a capital there. I'll just go back into it, make it lowercase, and say OK. So that's the base level of the sprites we've got to create at this stage. Again, it's got a little arrow next to the sprite folder because we've got some things in it now. And you'll notice up the top of the screen here it just says new game. I haven't saved it yet, so I'm going to go File, Save As, go to my folder for you guys, Game Maker, new folder, and this is lesson 2. And I'm going to call it chicken and egg, and go save. So now at the top I've got a chicken and egg file saved. I've got my little sprites on in there, so it's all saved, and I'm going to close it down. So next time we come into the game, if we go Game Maker again, open it up, opens up with the same sort of blurbs, close your screen down. This time I'm going to go File and Open, and it's in my correct folder here because it's remembered, and I'm going to go chicken and egg. Now a lot of people open up their folders at this point and go, there's nothing there. You know, because there's nothing on the screen in particular. But all you've got to do is check your little arrow over at the side here, click it down. You can see you've got your sprites, and that's where you're up to in the last lesson, and you're ready to go for the next lesson. So that's it for now. Creating your sprites is the next step. If you get adventurous, and we might have a look at this in a second, if we go into a sprite, yeah, we'll choose the star. You'll notice in here there's an edit sprite area. You can actually go in and change the colors and how the sprite looks. If we go into it a bit further, here's the sprite up here, and you can go and edit different colors and start playing with things. You can actually create sprites in this area and save them as well. So if you want to have a little bit of a play around with that at this stage, because one of the things I'll get you to do at the end of this game is actually modify the game. So I want you to create this one following the tutorial and then modify the game. So you're going to have this game and this game modified just to demonstrate you're getting an understanding of how to do things without following a tutorial. Anyway, I'll leave you with that little extension activity. Go in and change some sprites. Make sure you resave it as a new name so you've still got the existing sprite, and have a little play around with that. That's all for now.